One of the most requested topics on this channel is for budget airsoft gun videos. Just how cheap can you get an airsoft gun that's actually good? And I understand why. There's a lot of beginning airsofters that want to get into the game, but they don't want to spend $200, $300, $400 right away. Well, I'm going to show you that you don't need to spend even $1 if you're crafty enough. You can do a lot with some tools and with a couple torn apart guns that can be cannibalized to build something totally unique. So let's just see 10 of the cheapest airsoft builds out there in the world, because this is an episode of the Airsoft Tops Series. If you haven't seen one of these episodes, then welcome to the series, where I show off hundreds of custom guns and pieces of gear from all around the world. It takes a bit of ingenuity, craftsmanship, and a bit of talent to stand out in the world, and this is where I get to show off people with those traits to the masses. And this is all thanks to Airsoft GI, who is sponsoring this episode, and G&G Armament. Be sure to check out their websites with the links listed down below in the description, or just check out some of the stuff listed there to get more information about some of these builds. But with all that read and said, let's check out the first build at the 10th spot. That's coming from Ozark, Missouri, thanks to Joseph Sanders. This is a little simple, but a fun one-shot break action conversion that was once an Orion flare pistol, but it is now a pseudo gas shotgun. This was put together with only $46 spent, and it only took the snipping of the hammer spring, a couple PPS shotgun shells, and some filament to get ready for an airsoft game. I've showcased a build similar to this one in a previous episode, so I'm happy to see another one in the wild, as it's an example that if you really want to play airsoft, then you can use your mind or some skill if your funds are tight. You can even use your love for games like Fallout to inspire you to build something like the SEMA grenade launcher setup. First, spend $45 to get the launcher, then spend $25 online to get some stickers, and then do everything else yourself, just like Mike from Portsmouth did. Then, to wrap up the first 3 builds for this episode, Shoguns makes a return at the 8th spot for this. Yeah, this. Straight from the Dusk Till Dawn movie, this Sex Machine crotch pistol replica is now a pelvic grenade launcher. Its very talented builder used heat to craft PVC and hoses to the desired shape before adding it to a belt and painting it to match the film. It's in no way practical at all, but it is sure to be a one-of-a-kind and outlandish piece anywhere you take it. I doubt you'd ever get a kill with it, but if you did, I'd expect someone to give you a trophy for it soon afterwards. And that's not bad for $8 spent in parts. Moving on to 7th and 6th spots, I've got a couple of basic, good-looking pieces, followed up by 2 really strange creations. This starts with Robbie's short-barreled AK from Scotland. This project was first thought up by Robbie, but thanks to his friend Phil, it became a reality after an 8-year-old G&G AK-47 combat machine was donated for this little project. Externally, the biggest changes made by Phil was the removal of the stock, and the barrel was shortened down to give it a pistol look. In addition, some parts were 3D printed to replace lost parts, like the stock cap, and the front handguard was given a fake wood finish to make it look just a little bit nicer. This also covered the horrid green paint used on the handguard that UK law demanded. But now that Robbie has a proper license, he doesn't need that dual-tone look anymore. The gun had to be rewired for dust cover connections, but besides all that, this build stayed cheap, like $0 cheap, since all the parts were either 3D printed or just reused from other guns. In total, this gun took about a week to build, and it now shoots 330 feet per second, or around 1 joule. This is pretty much an AK built on the why not lifestyle, and when the virus blows over, this will be one of the first things that Robbie finally uses on the field. Connor then follows this up with something that should have been in the last countdown. But tell me, what do you think about this Call of Duty Black Ops 1 inspired MP5K build? It's nice, right? But what about the build cost? Well, it was built on a $120 budget. Not too bad, but not really expensive either, especially for a Tokyo Marui. Connor had no need to tear into the gearbox or replace anything internally, so he focused his attention on the exterior. He wanted to match the early prototype MP5K look seen in Black Ops 1, so he had to score himself a 3D printed MP5K grip. Everything else, like the replica T1 red dot, scope rail, and mock suppressor, was then snatched from older MP5s that he had to get the setup he wanted perfectly. I hear in the UK they love and prize their Tokyo Maruis, so I hope this one is respected around the fields that Connor ventures to. He says that this thing turns heads, so I can assume it does. Then wrapping up this segment, I'm just going to call this gun an apocalyptic art piece. That's what it is. This is Stu's $10 Tech 9. Stu wrote to me about this build, and I'm just going to read it just how he sent it to me. For a post-apocalyptic game that I went to, I wanted a realistically poorly functioning gun to use as a possible trading game, but something that, if needed, would actually work. I wanted it to look plausible, but not exactly like a modern firearm. The base gun has little resemblance to the gun it's supposed to represent, and it was 9 pounds new, including postage. It took about 5 minutes to fix the mag and restrict the capacity to a realistic in-game capacity of 20 whole rounds. I didn't like how skinny the magazines looked, so I added a piece of plastic to it to widen it. The pump action barrel shroud was nasty, so I took it off, attached a nut to the spring mechanism to make it like a bolt action, and used the surplus barrel pump action part to make a handguard, kind of like a stubby Thompson submachine gun. A couple bits of corrugated piping and washers were added just for a little bit of quick texture, and then the whole thing was painted and weathered. Long story short, a little hard work, glue, straps, tape, scrap, distressed leather for the grip, some imagination, and even a polished beer cap inside the bolt to make it look a little bit more authentic, and then boom, apocalypse build. Stu is pretty good at these builds, and just looking at this makes me really want to film a proper apocalypse event where everyone is decked out in handmade gear and guns, a dirty and slightly retro game where imagination and craftsmanship is just overflowing. That's the game I want to film, and that's also where we wrap up the 5th spot for this episode. Something this countdown episode makes me really want to do next is a do-it-yourself countdown, or maybe a 3D printing show. It's just some of the stuff that was submitted for this episode that didn't claim a spot needs to be seen, like this almost entirely 3D printed M4 from Bryce Crispin. The only things not printed on this rifle is the VFC gearbox shell, the G&G green hop-up bucking, and the Type bore inner barrel, along with a few small pins and screws for a total cost of under $75. There was also a wood-furnished M16 that was turned in, and a bunch of other sexy AKs, so I'd have a lot of content to put together for more countdowns. Nonetheless, let's check out the 4th spot that is truly heretical. Straight from Germany, this is App&Mann Custom's 9mm G36. Right away, to get this look, an M4 magazine adapter was modified to work with MP5 magazines. A whole new custom front assembly was also made, which makes it even shorter than a G36C. The barrel length now sits at 15 centimeters, which means it's too short to put a battery up front, so it needs to go into a pouch connected to the stock. The carry handle is usable, but this is a CQB gun now that can dish out 20 to 25 rounds per second. The gearbox remains pretty cheap, but a dual sector gear, the metal teeth on the piston, and the homemade MOSFET are nice. This was built to be different, like the 9mm AK that he made, and it wasn't too difficult either, and it was done for $60, which, believe it or not, is everything that needs to be said about this build, wrapping up another App&Mann Custom. So if you can downsize on magazines, let's downsize on the most extreme weapons out there. We've seen the Gatling gun, the minigun, and the microgun. But now it's time for the Nanogun, brought to you by Mark of the UK. There's been a lot of great stuff coming from the UK, and I'm not even surprised by that. Everyone seems to want to do something different there, so it takes crazy stuff like this to really stand out nowadays. After all, this was originally a gel blaster, and it was never meant to fire airsoft BBs. I just wonder if G&G would be proud of having their gears inside this Nanogun. Mark added a bit of stuff in here, like an SHS high torque motor, a VSR-10 6.03mm inner barrel, and he left the original hop-up unit, in quotations hop-up unit, alone, leading to a $118 build cost for a one-of-a-kind build that fires 50 BBs a second for 50 meters, and he's got 10,000 BBs up top in the hopper. Mark is all about building stuff that shouldn't be possible, so expect to see him again very soon. Just like Yagi. I told you he'd be back in the last episode. He's taking the runner-up spot this time for this shotgun. But why? Well, it's because he turned it into a functioning Mosin Nagant. This is another instance of turning one thing into a completely different thing with a lot of craftsmanship and patience. Surprisingly, the only internal mods that were made was the installation of an M120 spring, an aluminum inner barrel, and a homemade hop-up bucking. The rest was cut from wood and molded from PVC pipe, which took many tiring hours to shape the dummy magazine, the iron sights, and the bolt assembly. This kept the price for something like this low at $45, since the donor gun was already cheap to begin with. But even with this low expense, Yagi is still reaching out 55 meters with .32 gram BBs at only 220 feet per second. And can you imagine being outranged by this? You might have spent $300 to $500 on your rifle, but Yagi might just take you out of the game with something worth less than 3 bottles of BBs. Once again, Yagi is showing off what he can do, even when handicapped, with a low budget. And I'm loving it. This has been a fun little countdown that I hope will encourage people to do a little more unique and creative stuff with our game. And of course, I hope it helps some people save some money out there. But before I get into the top spot, I just have to show some love for a really special build that I found while checking around Facebook a couple nights ago. This amazing drill impersonator was built around an Action Army AAP-01 that's quickly becoming popular amongst some of the most talented builders. I doubt this can be classified as a budget build, but it's just too good looking that I couldn't ignore it. I apologize for not being able to pronounce the builder's name, but I'll leave a link to the original post in the description so you can check it out for yourself. This is the kind of creativity that we need more in Airsoft. The kind of creativity that saved this little AK from the boneyard. At the top spot for this episode, I'd like to present this stubby Kalashnikov from Adam of Hungary. This just might be the first build to ever take the top spot from Hungary, and I'm happy that it was done with this apocalypse-inspired AK that started life as a SEMA Beta Spetsnaz. The original gun was trashed. It was missing parts, but it was soon transformed into Adam Brewer's new LARPing rifle with only 11 USD spent to make it happen. I meant that trashed part more than you might realize. The base rifle was literally found in a landfill, thrown in with all the plastic trash, covered in mud and filled with rainwater and trash ooze. This gun was disgusting when Adam of Brewer's Workshop found it, which made it perfect for an idea he had. This was going to be his next apocalypse build, which seems to be the perfect route to go with heavily worn in or battered airsoft guns. The internals had to be completely redone, from the angle of engagement, the shimming, FET, a new built-in trace unit, Dean's connections, and a very nice imitation flash that goes off when the gun is fired. On the outside, well, Adam just said to look at it. The oil filter suppressor stands out, and everything was cut down to the shortest length possible before he applied a spiderweb camo. The last bits thrown on consist of a micro T1 red dot and a Specna Arms vertical grip. And that's how Adam brought back this rifle. A literal piece of trash that most people would overlook or deem as unfixable. Adam still brought it back like a resurrection, and that's why he's taking the top spot. I love the effort that went into this build, and I love how you can use this to prove that you have very few excuses to not play Airsoft. If Adam can make this from this, then you should feel a little bit more positive for what's possible. So, I give Adam my respect, and I hope you guys would as well. And that's 10 custom guns for less than $150. It takes some skill to pull builds like these from your dreams and into your workbench. And there's dozens more that I didn't even show off here. So if you'd like to see another episode, then just hit the like button down below to show your appreciation. That way, I know that this topic is popular. I really do have to thank all the builders who submitted for this show, and I need to personally thank the Airsoft Heretics page where most of these builds were turned in. This page helps me gather so many awesome setups for these shows, so go check them out or consider joining the page to see more stuff that I don't even show off here. And before I go, I just thought I'd share that I'll be trying to gather vehicles built for Airsoft for the next countdown, since that was the second most popular topic that was voted on. So keep an eye out on the USAirsoft Facebook and Instagram for the polls, just in case you'd like to submit a vehicle of your own. But I'd also like to thank the channel members that keep the channel going and directly support my videos by simply becoming members. So thank you, Easy Zandy, Sir Triss, Kiwi Spartan, Lone Wolf, sorry for messing up your name in the last video by the way, Cirque du Noé, F4R Kalash, Western Gilbert, and William Temple. Each member gets updates on videos, gets to help pick episodes for the series, and Tier 2 members even get to watch videos before they go public to anyone else. So maybe consider joining if you really enjoy US Airsoft. The button to become a member is right on the front page of the channel next to the subscribe button. And a big shout out goes to these awesome people who donated in the last live stream. You guys are awesome, and I promised I'd give you guys a shout out during that stream. But until that next video drops from the city of San Antonio, this has been Scott Hollenbeck, and I'll be sure to see you all next time.